Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a forensic look at what has to be one of the most unbelievable financial disasters in modern history, the total collapse of the crypto exchange FTX. We're going to skip the rumor mill completely today. Instead, we're building our entire understanding straight from the foundational legal documents, specifically the devastating bankruptcy declaration from the new CEO and the federal superseding indictment against founder Sam Bankman-Fried. Let's get into it. Okay, to really set the stage, we have to start with this absolutely shocking quote. It's from John J. Ray III. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's because he's the restructuring expert who was brought in to clean up the massive mess at Enron. Remember Enron? Well, in his sworn declaration for FTX, he stated, "Never in my career have I seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information as occurred here." Just let that sink in for a second. The exact same guy who oversaw the largest corporate fraud case of the early 2000s is literally saying FTX is entirely unprecedented. So here's our agenda for this explainer. We're going to map out this disaster in 5 quick steps. 1. An unprecedented failure. 2. The illusion of trust. 3. Uncovering the 4 silos. 4. Mechanics of the fraud. And finally, number 5. Tracking the missing billions. Kicking things off with Section 1. An unprecedented corporate failure. To really wrap our heads around this collapse, we have to look at the sheer size of the operation. Before its sudden implosion, FTX was an absolute behemoth. By early 2022, they claimed a staggering $15 billion in daily trading volume. I mean, they were handling roughly 10% of global crypto trading. They completely projected this image of a massive, highly sophisticated financial institution on the world stage. But behind that multi-billion-dollar facade, the internal reality was completely absurd. The bankruptcy filings reveal they literally used an unsecured group email account as the root user to access their most critically sensitive data. And how do you think expenses were approved? Well, employees would submit requests in a chat platform, and a random group of supervisors approved them by just responding with personalized emojis. You can't make this stuff up. Corporate funds were secretly used to buy Bahamian real estate in the personal names of employees. And to top the whole shebang off, Sam Bankman-Fried actively encouraged using auto-deleting messaging apps like Signal, basically guaranteeing a complete absence of lasting records for any of their decision-making. Moving right along to Section 2, the illusion of trust. There was a massive, gaping hole between what Bankman-Fried told the public and what was actually happening behind closed doors. Publicly, he positioned himself as the great savior of crypto. He literally testified before the U.S. Senate, swearing under oath that FTX had strict principles for consumer protection and that they rigidly segregated customer assets from their own. But the private reality is detailed in the indictment. He was secretly tapping right into those exact customer deposits, basically giving himself a giant interest-free credit line to fund his lavish lifestyle and his other business ventures. The federal indictment lays this out in black and white. While spending millions on celebrity Super Bowl ads calling FTX the safest and easiest way to buy and sell crypto, Bankman-Fried was routinely misappropriating those exact funds. He aggressively promoted FTX as this highly regulated safe haven while privately exposing his very own customers to massive, completely undisclosed risks. All right, Section 3, uncovering the 4 silos. So when the new CEO took over, he found absolutely zero centralized structure. It was a mess. To even make sense of it, he had to forensically group this sprawling enterprise into what he called the 4 silos. You've got the WS silo handling the U.S. exchanges, then the Alameda silo, which acted as their massive quantitative trading hedge fund. There's the ventures silo for private investments, and finally the .com silo, which was the global non-U.S. exchange FTX.com. Laying it out like this is absolutely crucial because it helps us finally see how the money was bouncing between the exchange where everyday customers deposited their phones and the hedge fund where that money was actually being gambled away. Now, what actually allowed this chaotic web to function was an extreme, almost unheard of concentration of power. The bankruptcy documents reveal that aside from the co-founders, Sam Bankman-Fried, Gary Wang, and Nishad Singh, no single investor owned more than 2% of the equity in any of these silos. So, third-party oversight, it was virtually non-existent. In fact, many of these entities never held a single board meeting. The whole operation was entirely controlled by a tiny, very inexperienced group of individuals. Which brings us to Section 4, Mechanics of the Fraud. Okay, so how did this actually work step by step? Well, early on, strict compliance rules meant U.S. banks flat out refused to open accounts for FTX. To bypass this, Bankman-Fried directed the creation of a U.S.-based entity named North Dimension. It had a fake website and zero actual business operations. Customers were instructed to wire their cash deposits to North Dimension, fully believing they were funding their FTX accounts. But in reality, North Dimension was completely controlled by his hedge fund, Alameda. So Alameda essentially intercepted these customer deposits right at the source and just immediately started spending them. And the actual indictment text proves the technological side of this fraud, which is wild. Bankman-Fried caused the creation of secret loopholes in the computer code that powered FTX's trading platform. We are talking about hard-coded exemptions that literally allowed his hedge fund, Alameda, to run up a multi-billion-dollar negative balance on FTX, a balance he knew for a fact they couldn't repay. Alameda was secretly made exempt from the auto-liquidation protocols that applied to every single other normal customer on the platform. So, where did all that stolen customer money actually go? The indictment outlines that the funds were pumped into Alameda's high-frequency trading operations, used to fund highly speculative venture investments, and, of course, for extreme self-enrichment. The documents also note an aggressive, unlawful political influence campaign. They flooded the U.S. political system with tens of millions of dollars in illegal campaign contributions. And the filings make this crystal clear. This money was steered to both Democrats and Republicans alike, often made in the names of other people to obscure the true source of those stolen customer funds. But this corruption didn't just stay in the U.S. It extended globally. Take a look at this staggering number: a single $40 million bribe authorized directly by Sam Bankman-Fried himself. The indictment details exactly what this massive payout was for. Back in 2021, Chinese law enforcement authorities had frozen certain Alameda trading accounts that held over $1 billion in cryptocurrency. So to regain access to that massive pool of frozen assets, Bankman-Fried authorized and directed a bribe of at least $40 million to one or more Chinese government officials. Once the accounts were unfrozen, they turned right around and used those assets to fund even more Alameda trading activity. Finally, we reach Section 5, Tracking the Missing Billions. As you'd expect, this entire house of cards inevitably collapsed in early November of 2022. An internet news organization leaked Alameda's balance sheet, and it publicly revealed that the hedge fund's solvency was entirely dependent on a multi-billion-dollar valuation of FTX's very own digital currency, the FTT token. The problem? That asset was highly illiquid. The market panicked and a massive customer bank run ensued. Knowing full well the money was gone, Bankman-Fried falsely claimed assets were secure, just trying to slow down the withdrawals. But it completely failed, leading to an emergency Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing in the early hours of November 11. The new bankruptcy team was immediately faced with a bleak, unvarnished reality. As John J. Ray III notes in his declaration, one of his core objectives is asset protection and recovery. He acknowledges right up front that, quote, a substantial portion of property of the estate may be missing or stolen. They had to start completely from scratch, literally without a functioning accounting department, just to begin tracking down billions in digital and physical property. And the scramble to secure those remaining assets? It's still ongoing. The bankruptcy team immediately had to centralize global cash into approved U.S. institutions. They're hiring forensic analysts and top-tier cybersecurity teams to trace assets on the blockchain. They did manage to secure about $740 million in new cold wallets, but get this, even during the bankruptcy process itself, they were actively fighting off hackers. Right now, they're investigating at least $372 million in completely unauthorized transfers that were initiated on the very day the bankruptcy was filed. It is an absolute forensic nightmare. So to wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought based on the evidence we've reviewed today. We have witnessed a total absence of corporate controls, the use of chat emojis for multi-million-dollar accounting, auto-deleting messages to hide their tracks, and secret code purposely written to siphon off billions. With so much wealth completely unaccounted for, will the everyday customers ever see their money again, or do we just witness the blueprint for the perfect digital heist? Thanks for joining me as we unpacked these documents and keep asking the hard questions.